Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to InfoGamer. Today I'm going to be following up on my last modeling video where I showed how to create a basic 3D alphabet. In this video we're going to be taking the 3D text that we created in the last video and I'm going to use it as a template to create a better 3D model of each letter. Now before we begin, make sure that you subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you can get updates when we publish new videos. Alright, so here I have my ABC project open inside of Maya, and I've actually already gone through all the letters except for R and recreated the basic geometry structure for the front face of each letter. So I'm going to use the letter R as an example of the steps that I've taken to recreate each letter. And so the first thing that we want to do is select the geometry for our letter R. Now once again, this letter was created using Maya's built-in 3D text tool. And as you can tell, the geometry for this letter isn't very good. And so we're going to fix that. Now once we have the letter selected, we want to center the pivot for this letter. And so I'm going to go up to Modify and then select Center Pivot. And then we're going to hold X and move this letter over to the center of our scene. Now for this step, I'm only going to be creating the front face of our letter. And so to do this, I'm going to use just a basic plane. And so I'm going to create a plane by clicking this button here. And then I'm going to rotate this plane by 90 degrees in the x-axis. And I'm also going to reduce the subdivisions in width and height to 1. I'm then going to use the vertices select tool to reposition all the vertices of this plane to overlap the left vertical line of our letter R. So I'm going to right click, select vertices, and I'm going to reposition each vertice. And you can hold V as you move the vertices, which will snap the selected vertice to another existing vertice. So as you can see here, I moved each vertice so that our plane overlaps the straight vertical line of our R, and I went from the top of our R down to where the end of the line starts to round in. Next, I'm going to divide up this plane by inserting some edges. So I'm going to use this tool here, which is the Insert Edge Loop tool. And if you don't have this pinned to your toolbar, then you can find it under the Mesh Tools drop-down menu, and it's right here. And if you want to pin it to your toolbar, which I highly recommend, you can hold Control and Shift and click on that option. And then you can see that it's been added to our toolbar, but I'm going to delete it because I already have it there. Now with this tool selected, all we have to do is click on the edge of our plane, which will add an edge loop, and we want to add one right here, and then one here, and one here. I'm also going to add one in the middle of the two that we just barely created. Now we want to extrude some of our edges so that we can create the rest of our letters. So with our Move tool selected, I'm going to select this edge loop and these two here. And then I'm going to hit the Extrude tool, which is right here on my toolbar. And I'm going to then select our Move tool and drag it out to right about there. And then going to grab our Vertices Select tool, and I'm going to reposition some of these vertices. Now whenever you have what's called a bowl in typography, which is the rounded part of our letter R, I found it easiest to create this shape if we move the first vertices that we've extruded out to the center point of the archway. I'll then take this edge and I'll extrude it out again, and I'll drag it down, and then I'll use this tool, which is the Target Weld tool, and I'll weld this edge to this edge. We can then extrude this edge out to the end of our R, and we might need to scale it up a little bit. The next step that we can do, and this step only applies to fonts that have rounded ends, is that we can extrude this edge out and drag it down to the end of our line, and then we can scale it in so that it's pretty close to a single point. And then what we'll do is we'll add in edges using our Insert Edge Loop tool, and we're going to scale out these edges so that it makes a rounded end. Until it looks something like that. And the more edges that we add in, the more rounded it will look. So I'm going to do that same thing to this end here. Next, I'm going to add in more edge loops to round out the bowl and the leg of our letter. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good. Now all we have to do is round out this corner. So I'm going to use our insert edge loop tool. I'm going to add one there, and one here, and one here. And then I'm going to grab our vertices select tool. I'm going to move out this vertice. Alright, and so there we go. We have now recreated our letter R. And now I'm just going to delete the template. So I'm going to select that, delete, select that, delete. And then I'm going to select our newly created letter R, and I'm going to go to Modify, Freeze Transform. And then what I've been doing is I've been moving the letters out of the way, and that's why you can see all my letters stacked up right here. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to our Windows drop-down menu, and I'm going to select Hypergraph Hierarchy. And that'll bring up this window here, which has a list of all the objects within our scene. And as you can see, I've been renaming our objects to each letter, but I need to continue doing that. Alright, so now I've spread out all my letters so that you can see them better, and I've also cleaned up my project by deleting some objects that were left over from our 3D text tool. The next step I'm going to do is, since all these letters are just flat planes, I'm going to select all of them and extrude them out to give them some depth. So I'm going to switch over to our 3D view, and I'm going to select our letters. And then I'm going to hit the extrude tool, and I'm going to drag them out. And you can really just drag them out to any depth that you feel is necessary for the assets that you're creating. So probably right about there. And so here you can see each of my letters and the structure of their geometry. Now, one thing to note is if you're creating a letter that is symmetrical across an axis, then you can create one half of that letter and then mirror it across the axis by using the mirror geometry tool. So now that I had the basic geometry created for this alphabet, the next steps that I would take would be to spend some time polishing up the geometry to make sure that it's very smooth, sharp, and clean. For the next video I do on creating this alphabet, I'll be adding textures and materials to each letter. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you were able to follow along and create your own alphabet. If you don't have access to Maya, then you can always use Blender, which is free to use. And though some of the tools and controls might be a little bit different, the basic principles that we talked about in this video apply to modeling in general. If you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see me model in the future, make sure that you leave them in the comments below. Also, make sure that you subscribe to our channel so you can be up to date on all our latest videos. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.